Now, Superman, lot here, and I know a lot less about the history of DC Comics than I know about Marvel. I will not do justice. I could not even attempt to do justice.
But will you do Justice League?
I won't even do Justice League.
Dang.
The story of how Superman was created and the long saga of his creation, the long development, is fascinating. There's lots of good resources you can go consult. So this is just a capsule-sized history that I shall give here. But, Superman, not literally the first superhero comic, but the one that launched the whole thing.
Okay.
He was developed over a period of years between the artist, Joe Shuster, and the writer, Jerry Siegel. Their intention was to use him in newspaper strips. That's what you did if you were a comic artist. The strips, the funny pages. But they struggled to sell him and eventually got an offer from a comic book publisher for an anthology magazine called Action Comics. So it's like, could our superhero be in a comic book? That's interesting. The first issue of Action Comics was published April 1938, and in it, Superman takes up 13 pages of the issue, and Siegel and Shuster were paid $130 for their work, and as was standard industry practice at the time, had to sign away the lifetime perpetual ownership of Superman, the character, to the company, to National Allied Publications, the predecessor of DC. And in exchange, they got a 10-year contract to write Superman comics for this company. So $130, and they just sign him away forever.
They died though, right? They're fine.
They died. They're fine.
They're no longer in pain.
At least there's that. Yeah. This was the launch of the golden age of comic books, and Superman would appear in Action Comics and also in his own comic book line, Comics. Suddenly the publishing industry is like, hey, we can make a lot of profit off of this.
And since time immemorial, there's been crossover. It's the way of the superhero. You're just like, oh, let me pop in over here now. I'm over here.
Batman's here with Superman, and I can get Superman in Action Comics and also Superman. Better read them both, so I'm on top of everything.
You hear that? Marvel movies of the future? We're all going to be in everybody's shit.
But right here in the golden age of comics, Batman comes, Wonder Woman, The Flash, Captain America, they get created and published in the years following Superman. Shuster and Siegel, they work basically for 10 years making comics for DC about Superman. And then at the end of their contract, they sue to regain the rights to their character. And the court, this may shock you, but the American court system is like, shall we side with the laborers or the powerful corporate interests? And they chose the powerful corporate interests and say, no, sorry, you worms, you signed away.
Just like Superman does. I'm kidding. It's not the right thing to do.
Not only did they, release, they don't hire them back to keep writing Superman comics, they take away from future Superman comics, they take away their name. So it doesn't say Superman created by. And they both go on to live a financially precarious life, struggle to find steady work in and out of the comics industry, and then do other like there's a story of Shuster having to work as a delivery driver and getting humiliated because he has to deliver a package into the DC office. So, hey, look who's delivering our package. It's the guy who made Superman, who created the jobs we all have.
I feel bad about the dead comment now.
But occasionally they'd be hired as a contract employee, not given any creative control, but come in, take some pictures, say, see, here's living legend, Jerry Siegel, working in the DC office.
If there had been Comic-Cons at that time, that's what they would have done.
Yeah, it's the world was just what a good thing. One of the few good things the world has invented is cons over the past however many decades they've been around. Because I was doing my other podcast, The Signpost Up Ahead, my monthly podcast.
Keep talking about it.
About the Twilight Zone, and there's an episode about an aging film star. It's a lot like the movie Sunset Boulevard, and with both of those, I was thinking they just needed for cons to be invented.
Not like you get one over on people, but like conventions.
Yes. For sad like former silent actress.
Hey, they don't have to be sad. They're at a con.
But she is sad.
Oh.
And she's like, no one remembers me. But listen, if there's a convention, you can go to the Pasadena Civic Center.
You can get groped, take some pictures.
Thousands of people who will pay just to talk to you for 1 minute.
And they're going to be a little weird, some of them. But endure it.
That's what you pay. That's what the money's for.
Great. Lovely. You get no security. Just take it.
Anyway,
You're lucky.
they sue again. It fails. Then in the mid-'70s, there's news of a major Hollywood Superman movie getting developed. And so Shuster and Siegel launch a last-ditch Hail Mary publicity campaign.
Whoa.
Listen, everybody. Listen to how poorly they're treating us. And DC is now owned by Warner Brothers. They're producing the movie, and they panic a little bit. So they agree, we will reinstate your names on the comic books, and we'll give you each an annual stipend of $20,000 in exchange for never suing us again.
I mean, that sounds like good money for the time.
Okay, but they have made billions of dollars for this company. And then Siegel died in the 90s, deeply in debt, and Warner's agreed to pay off his debts if his family agreed to never sue them again. So just the change they find in their sofa, they dump it on these people. That's the story of Superman's creation. So then, what about other media? Well, in the 1940s, there's a very popular radio adaptation, Superman, The Adventures of Superman. This is where it's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman.
That's interesting because he switches between Clark Kent and Superman. How does he change his name his voice to make that work on the radio?
Oh, that's all in the actor. You got to give two distinct performances.
But vocal? Mm-hmm. All right.
And Christopher Reeve said he thought originally it's like, well, I need to give two distinct performances. And then he was told, no. You're always Superman. But when you're Clark Kent, Superman himself is playing a role. It's a role within a role. Mm-hmm. That's what's so good about it, as you'll see when we watch the movie. Anyway, Fleischer Animation Studios produces these incredible theatrical animated shorts in the early 40s. These are all on YouTube. You should watch them. They're great. Movie serial in 1948, the 1950s TV series starring George Reeves, and then a bunch of animated shows in the 60s and 70s, most notoriously the Hanna-Barbera Super Friends. So, the idea of a big budget Superman movie probably seems a little misguided or silly. So they start developing a movie when the father-son producing duo Alexander and Ilya Salkind purchase the Superman movie rights in the 1970s and start working on a big budget movie adaptation. They had the idea, this was always the idea, we will produce two movies back to back. So they write one script that will take up two movies. And that is indeed what they did. Superman 2 was produced back to back with Superman 1, but the director, Richard Donner, was fired mid-production on Superman 2, famously. But
is Superman 2 good?
It is good, but it's kind of a mess. You can tell it's a mess. You can tell like it's kind of Frankenstein together. Mm. They hire Mario Puzo, the author of The Godfather and who also helped write the screenplay for The Godfather, to write the script, and he's paid a giant salary. And Francis Ford Coppola was in negotiations to direct. Other luminaries like William Friedkin, Sam Peckinpah, and Richard Lester.
Peckinpah?
Sam Peckinpah.
That's fun.
He is the most fun director name to say by far. Mm-hmm. Peckinpah. Also, the only director my dad has ever mentioned to me.
Because of the name.
I guess that's it.
It sticks.
Matt, you know that guy, Sam Peckinpah?
Cheryl Ladd and Sam Peckinpah.
Probably the most my dad thing to say, Sam Peckinpah. Anyway, they make offers to both Steven Spielberg and George Lucas and get turned down. Mario Puzo turns in his script, this enormous 500-page script, and they hire Guy Hamilton to direct. Guy Hamilton is the director of 4 James Bond movies, Goldfinger, Diamonds Are Forever, Live and Let Die, and The Man with the Golden Gun. Guy Hamilton was like, when the James Bond series was in crisis, they bring back Guy. That was kind of his thing.
He's our guy.
Because he directed Goldfinger, which is a phrase Lacey hates when I say it, platonic ideal of a James Bond movie.
Platonic. We're not going to marry it.
And so whenever they have like a one that's not well received, Guy will come in and make things right.
He just gets it.
The first person they cast is Marlon Brando, who, as I said earlier, is paid $4 million and 12% of the box office gross, and contractual guarantee that he can film all of his scenes in 12 days.
He's an expensive first hire.
Yeah, yes. But it's like, no, we're showing people we're serious about this movie. Like, This isn't a goofy cartoon. We've got the most famous, respected actor in the world who's also an insane person. Famously difficult to work with in the 1970s, going insane on drugs and just being a weirdo. And, his career gets revived in the early 70s with The Godfather. He wins his second Oscar. But he refuses to learn lines now. He's like, no, I don't memorize lines anymore. I don't do that.
You say them, then I say them.
So he has their cue cards. Basically, wherever you see the camera, wherever the camera's not, there's a cue card.
Like in this movie or just now?
Yeah, in this movie.
Okay.
Like Godfather, he tried real hard. After that, he's like, I don't have to do that anymore.
I mean, because like I feel like he's there for such a short period of time, but he says, my friends. He says my friends like 3 different times.
My friends.
Are people really, is that really in the script?
Just what he keeps resetting to.
Yeah.
So the next person they hire, again, we're showing you we're serious. Gene Hackman, also notoriously difficult, but less crazy. So both of these men have won Best Actor Oscars like in the past handful of years.
Maybe their crazy cancels each other out. Like you can't have 2 in the room. Wait, they didn't.
But they
filmed at different times. Yeah. Damn it.
And the production is like worried about losing Gene Hackman. So they're like, let's film everything we can right away.
Okay.
Just don't want him to think this is stupid and Superman, I don't know, leave. The script that Mario Puzo turns in is very campy and it's very long and they're having trouble figuring out how to turn it into reality. And then they have troubles like filming locations. They want to go to Italy, but Marlon Brando can't go to Italy because he has an arrest warrant there, stemming from a sexual obscenity charge when he filmed Last Tango in Paris.
Showed his penis?
During the making of a sexy movie.
Oh, you got to show some peen.
They want to go to England. Yes?
It's a Foo Fighters music video.
Okay.
Look it up. Superhero and Foo Fighters music video.
Just do the podcast?
I'm so distracted.
Lacey's trying to figure out a thing that I don't even know what she's trying to figure out. She saw a picture of George Reeves and says, that's the guy from the music video or album cover. And I had to cut out 20 minutes of us Googling for no reason.
Now I'm Googling. I'm Googling.
They want to go to England. They're going to produce the movie in England. But one problem, Guy Hamilton can't go there because he owes a lot of tax money to the crown. He's a tax exile.
No.
The James Bond director can't go to England.
That's ironic.
So they lose Guy Hamilton and they go to Richard Donner. Richard Donner, Dick Donner to his friends. Directed 2 movies before having his commercial breakthrough with The Omen in 1976. An enormous hit, the 5th largest movie of that year. It's funny to think, like, these movies are big, The Exorcist and The Omen, but like imagine a devil movie being the 5th biggest movie of the year right now.
It was so unique. Like, you can put the devil in things?
But it wasn't that unique. They're like, we have The Exorcist and then we had The Omen. It's like, how about...
I'm not paying attention. I'm still thinking.
Devil goes into girl, maybe devil boy this time? Okay.
I got you.
So in 2016, there's this interview with Richard Donner where he tells really great stories about making Superman. And I have a very long quote. So Lacey, feel free to Google while I read this quote.
I'm completely dialed in.
I just love what he said. Quote, I was hot. It was just a high point in my life because I had done a lot of TV and then The Omen. I was getting a lot of calls and I had no idea where I was going. But then I got a call from Alexander Salkind. Alexander Salkind is the producer of the movie, and who tells him, quote, I'm making Superman. I don't have a director and I'll pay you $1 million. End quote. Richard Donner is like, holy shit, $1 million. I never thought this would happen to me, but here I have arrived. Quote, there was a delivery guy at my door within an hour with this script that was so thick and big you'd get a hernia from lifting it.
I thought he was delivering the $1 million.
And there were other things with the package, and one of them was the Superman costume. So I sat down and read the script, and it took forever. It was the longest thing I had ever read. It was indulgent and heavy and had no point of view and treated the comic books with disrespect. It was disparaging. It was just gratuitous action. I'm reading this thing, and Superman's looking for Lex Luthor in Metropolis, and he's looking for every bald head in the city. And then he flies down and taps a guy on the shoulder, and it's Kojak's Telly Savalas, who hands him a lollipop and says, who loves you, baby? I was brought up on Superman as a kid. There was a whole point in my life where I read Superman. So when I was finished with it, I was like, man, if they make this movie, they are destroying the legend of Superman. I wanted to do it just to defend him. I called a screenwriter friend of his, Tom Mankiewicz, who had been a friend for years. He said, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to do a comic book. I said, Tom, it's more than a comic book. Please come over. I got a little stoned, smoked some weed, put on the Superman costume. I was in pretty good shape then. I was like elastic.
Really
and Tom pulled up. And Tom pulled up and I ran across the lawn and Tom turned and looked at me and ran back to his car. Tom says, you're crazy. Get the fuck away from me. I said, listen, Tom, you got to read this. I gave him all my feelings about what we should do. I said, the most important thing when you look at this is make a love story and prove a man can fly. So he read it and he called me that night and said, there's a lot we can do with this. End quote. So Richard Donner convinces the Salkinds they have to do something about this script. We need to start over basically from scratch. By all indications, the Mario Puzo script, nothing from that ended up in the movie. Okay, they got their director though. They've got their two highest paid actors, but the question remains, who's actually going to play the star of the movie?
Right.
Who will play Superman? The first idea is get an A-lister. Robert Redford, Paul Newman, Burt Reynolds, they all turn it down. Sylvester Stallone meets with Richard Donner. A young Arnold Schwarzenegger lobbies very hard for the role, but Richard Donner really wants to go with an unknown.
Complete unknown.
A complete unknown. And you got your two heavyweights, so also taking up a lot of the budget. Let's go for something a little true. They auditioned 200 actors before giving a screen test to Christopher Reeve, who blows Richard Donner out of the water. He's like, "Oh, this is a lightning in a bottle. This is a star-making audition that I'm seeing on tape." And they hire him and say, "You're going to wear a muscle suit, right?" And he says, "No, I'm going to train and bulk up." Whoa. And now everybody who plays a superhero does that and goes on a years-long regimen. But this was kind of a novel idea. How about I get in shape for a role? So just a little background on Christopher Reeve. He was 24 years old at the time of production of Superman. He was a stage actor growing up and like a very serious, like studying theater, went to Cornell and then went to Juilliard's Advanced Acting Academy. The only other person who was accepted to the class at the time was Robin Williams, who would become a very close friend of his. Christopher Reeve was godfather to Robin Williams' first son. And then Christopher Reeve got cast on a soap opera called Love of Life in 1974, and he started splitting his time between the soap opera and stage acting, and he got cast in a play with Katharine Hepburn, who became a mentor to him. And the way she talked about him was like, this is clearly a guy who's going to be a star one day. Like it will happen. He said that he used Katharine Hepburn's movie Bringing Up Baby to influence his performance as Clark Kent. It's like, I got to play this like I'm playing a screwball comedy character or a Cary Grant character who, Clark Kent looks exactly like Superman. He just puts on glasses, but you have to play him entirely differently so that no one would ever suspect he's Superman because he's too much of a bumbling buffoon. So the first movie role he ever got was in a Charlton Heston movie called Grey Lady Down, and his second movie was Superman. And he said in his autobiography, quote, "By the late 1970s, the masculine image had changed. Now it was acceptable for a man to show gentleness and vulnerability. I felt the new Superman ought to reflect that contemporary male image." End quote. And everybody, like, the movie got good reviews. It was an enormous hit at the box office. It got good reviews, but what everybody said, everybody could agree, was like, Christopher Reeve, this is a star-making role. He's amazing. Let's see. Starlog magazine said, quote, "Christopher Reeve has become an instant international star on the basis of his first major movie role of Clark Kent / Superman. Film reviewers, regardless of their opinion of the film, have been almost unanimous in their praise of Reeve's dual portrayal.
Wow.
He is utterly convincing as he switches back and forth between personae." I
had no idea.
It's he's great. Margot Kidder, who plays Lois Lane, is like equally good. And Gene Hackman's great. Those are the three major reasons I love this movie. It's an enormous hit. $300 million in 1978 money. Gets 3 sequels. The one that they produce along with Superman 1, and then the weird Superman 3 co-starring Richard Pryor.
Oh my God.
And then the super low budget, many years later, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. Superman's 3 and 4 are really bad, but they're interesting in how bad they are.
Okay.
But that's it. That's the history of the Superman movie. I look forward to, yes?
Is Christopher Reeve in all of them?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes, he is.
But so he went on to be a major movie star?
No.
Or he just did this?
Okay, so famously got injured and disabled in 1995, I believe.
Right, but that was 20 years after this.
Right. It was kind of a case of you are so good in one particular role that it's hard for anybody to see you in any other kind of role. And the things that make you good in that role are not necessarily the things that could make you play a more complicated character or any kind of different character. I think he's really talented. He always worked steadily. And had he not been injured, I bet he would have had an interesting sort of third act in his career. I think especially as like the, movie brat or the Tarantino's who grew up watching
Right.
like home video would have been like, Christopher Reeve deserves, that's like a reclamation project we can
God,
we
yeah.
can get behind.
You always have good ideas on what directors would save them, or who's saving who. Is he dead now?
He's dead. He died in 2007.
Oh, so he only lived 8 years after his injury? Is that what you said?
That would have been 12 years.
Oh, you said 97.
95 is when he got
95.
injured. He died in 2004, so he lived only 9 years after he got paralyzed. Yeah, thrown from a horse in 1995, used a wheelchair and a ventilator for the rest of his life.
Okay,
And
so
then
he
became
had,
a big advocate for people with disabilities. And specifically, the thing that I really admire for, better insurance coverage for people with disabilities. It shouldn't. When you hear like advocacy, that can too easily just be like sort of what they call inspiration porn.
Right.
Look how great my life has
yes.
been. It's like, yeah, but you're a rich and powerful person.
So he had a different voice after that, right? Like he had like, it was like kind of monotone, a little.
Well, he had to use a ventilator, so he could only. I don't know if he could talk off the ventilator.
Okay.
I think he acted like twice after that in movies, as a person on a ventilator.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know he did a Rear Window remake for TV, and then he died of heart failure
Okay.
at
Oh, I mean,
the age of 52.
just struggling to breathe on a ventilator is you wear out all your muscles.
Yeah,
That's really fucking sad. Would you say that his class of Juilliard was cursed just based on those two guys?
I would say so. Not good.
Man, guys.
Superman, good movie. Look forward to Lacey actually watching it.